Bitcoin just hit $78,000. What a rally. Now, can we continue to pump from here? That is the question on everyone's mind, and in today's video, we'll be talking about it. So, you can see that we just absolutely exploded to the upside. In my previous videos, I talked about the fact that Bitcoin would likely continue to grab this upside liquidity as soon as we wicked out and we weren't able to get confirmation below those tariff capitulation lows. However, if you've been tuning into the channel, you know exactly what I'm about to say. My higher time frame analysis remains exactly the same in the sense of this is still a bear market rally, and I do think that over the course of this year, we will be seeing lower Bitcoin prices. The only thing is, a lot of people don't have patience for that. And don't get me wrong, this is a very nice rally. If we take it from the bottom here up to where Bitcoin went to today, that is a 30% rally. Quite significant. Now, what you'll notice is if we go to the historical price action of Bitcoin in bear markets, these rallies are not out of the question. If we go back, for example, on the weekly time frame to 2022, you'll notice that we've had several significant rallies. One of them over here, which effectively brought Bitcoin up just around 20%. Then we had another rally right around here, which was an even more significant one, 46%. Could you imagine if Bitcoin rallied that much, everyone got excited, and then we just bled lower? Now I get it. This is a nice rally, and you could have played it from the long perspective, and I'll talk about my trades in this video as well. But from the higher time frame, I still am looking to accumulate Bitcoin at lower levels over the course of this year. I think that the reason we're seeing strength in the crypto market is because we're seeing strength in the stock market. And what you'll notice here is that stocks continue to make all-time highs. This is a phenomenal weekly candle for the stock market. We cannot downplay that. Now, the topping process for a stock market does take some time, but right now, we just immediately V-shape reversed here, and it wouldn't surprise me if this can even continue. Now, let's get right to Bitcoin, because I'm sure a lot of you have tons of questions. First of all, how are my trades looking? Did you get liquidated, as some of you would say? The answer is absolutely not. I did not get liquidated. If you've been tuning into the channel, we originally shorted Bitcoin at around $123,000, closed that trade fully. Then I shorted Bitcoin again below $100,000, and I added to that position on the way down as I continued to take profits. So right now, these two trades that you're seeing here have stop losses at break even. So what that means is if the market does decide to pump even further, well, I can't lose any capital on these trades. In fact, I've secured just under 500K from these two trades total. This Tau trade was an absolutely phenomenal one, and I've been talking about it over the past week. I'm still maintaining a pretty big position, but I shaved some more profits today on this relief rally. I like to trade the higher time frame. I am not one to day trade really or enter scalp trades. However, if that's your cup of tea, that's your cup of tea. Now, let's continue here because I still think that there is a chance that Bitcoin could experience some difficulties right around here. And you want to know why? The bull market support band. Usually in a bull market, these moving averages act as support for Bitcoin. So when we tap into those levels, we manage to hold it and then get a significant bounce, often leading to much higher levels for Bitcoin. However, in a bear market, it tends to act as resistance. And this was actually one of the basis for my original 97K short. We just about tapped into that level, and it was a great level to enter. Therefore, I entered. And so right now, what we're seeing is on the weekly time frame, it paints a pretty clear picture. We actually went inside this bull market support band. Now, this isn't me just saying, hey, we're going to immediately reject, but it is something to consider. Ultimately, this level up here between the bull market support band up to even 80K will pose as resistance. You'll notice that when Bitcoin is in this big macro downtrend, we'll sweep up those previous levels and then we'll drop aggressively. So that's currently what I'm looking at. This is looking quite solid. And if you're looking for continued strength here, what you want to see is most certainly a weekly close for Bitcoin. We still have 2 more days of this weekend above $76,000. If we get acceptance back below this original wick, then it might suggest that Bitcoin is already ready to go towards the mid-range, and then we'll have to assess the price action there. I'm trying to not be super vocal about a bias because, as you know, I've been quite bearish over the past few months, and rightfully so. I made tons of profits on the way down. So in my videos, I'll try to also assess the local price action more thoroughly, talking about longing opportunities and shorting opportunities, even though my higher time frame analysis remains exactly the same. So let's see how this price action develops. Bitcoin did hit that level, and right now, as I'm recording this video, we are currently just above $77,000. This was a pretty significant move to the upside, confirming that momentum. Now that we hit the bull market support band, does it mean we're going to immediately reject? Only time will tell. Before we discuss the Strait of Hormuz, let's take a look at the liquidation data for Bitcoin. And man, oh man, is this interesting. This move up produced the biggest short liquidations since $123,000. Nearly every single time we've seen such large short liquidations during this bear market, it's actually been followed by further downside. So what the market makers like to do is they shake out all of the shorts and then they turbo nuke Bitcoin. Now, from a trading perspective, it's of course always important to manage your positions correctly. That's why when I get favorable price action, especially when I'm trading shit coins, for example, I move my stop loss to break even to ensure that I can't lose any capital. The people that just continuously add to their existing short positions without taking profits on the way down and without having any kind of stop loss are absolutely insane. You don't want to fall into that trap because the market can just absolutely tear you a new one. As I've said time and time again, I protect my positions. So all of these trades, I literally cannot lose any more capital except for these unrealized profits that you're seeing if for whatever reason the market is to soar even higher. But we are approaching a crucial zone, and if you take a look at this Bitcoin exchange liquidation map, which you know we like to cover in my videos, well, on the 30-day time frame, we've basically taken all of that upside liquidity. You can see here that on the right, if Bitcoin were to go all the way up to $86,000, there's just under $2 billion worth of cumulative short liquidation leverage. However, if Bitcoin were to go back to the mid-range at around $65,000, which isn't out of the question, well, there's just under 11.6 billion worth of cumulative long liquidation leverage. So please pay attention here. You don't want to jump into longs right at the top of the range. As I discussed in my previous video, the time to go long on Bitcoin was right below here when we swept up this liquidity right around $65,000 below the value area low. I talked about this in my group as well, even though I didn't manage to personally take that trade. It was a good long setup because we had lots of liquidity below that level locally. So let's talk a little bit about the negotiations between Iran and the US and the Strait of Hormuz before we wrap up this quick Friday video. Iran officially reopens the Strait of Hormuz for all commercial vessels for the remaining period of the ceasefire. Then, shortly after, an Iranian official came out and said that ships will still be required to pay tolls to cross the Strait of Hormuz. What is going on? Because that's two different things there. And we also have the fact that President Trump said Iran has agreed to suspend its nuclear program indefinitely and will not receive any frozen funds from the US, per Bloomberg. Details include, he says that a deal to end the war between the US and Israel and Iran is now mostly complete. Talks over a lasting agreement will probably be held this weekend, and most pain points are supposedly finalized. Trump also declined that this has a 20-year expiry and has not decided who would lead the US delegation for talks to sign the agreement. US oil prices are down to a 5-week low. And we know, of course, that the stock market pumped, and naturally this impacted Bitcoin nicely to the upside. On top of that, we got some more news that came out essentially contradicting it, which just said the transfer of Iran's enriched uranium to the US has never been an alternative for Iran. So there's a lot of back and forth here and contradicting statements from both sides. I'm not too sure what to make out of this, but it's very, very clear that the market is pricing in a strong deal between the US and Iran, because otherwise we would not be pumping as we've been seeing. Could this be the most manipulated move in history? Only time will tell, because there's only been a few times in history where we V-shaped reversal like we're seeing over the past few weeks. So What is next for Bitcoin? You can clearly see here that we are indeed breaking out, but the next levels that I would be potentially eyeing here are the bull market support band and the recent pivot low, which allowed Bitcoin to actually get a nice move before retracing. And that sums up today's quick video. Not much has changed from my higher time frame perspective, but we're now into that bull market support band, which historically acts as resistance in the bear market. So watch if we can get some weekly closes above that level, because if we can, it may mean that Bitcoin already wants to move higher. If you enjoy the content, make sure to smash that like button and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video.